Right guys, so if you've seen that video,
yeah, that's had it.
that gearbox has definitely had it. So in this video, what we're going to do, pretty sure it's the rear, we will take the gearbox out, or sorry, the differential out from here, and this will be the same process if you want to just general maintenance, or what we're going to do, we're going to look at the amount of oil that's in this rear diff, but we can have a look at that all in one go. So watch on, this will show you the quick way to service, change, replace your rear diff gear. So I've just removed the anti-roll bar cover and then just loosened off one of the little mounting points there, and that folds away like that. In actual fact, you don't need to quite take it all off like that, but it makes it easier for you guys to see. So then we've got some bolts here. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of them. We've loosened all them off. Then there's just these 2 bolts underneath here to remove what the rear bumper, I suppose you could call it. And of course you have 2 bolts, that one and that one underneath to undo. And once you've undone them, this should then come off. So with those out from underneath, it should then slide off like that. I'll keep them all together so I know where they go. We then take off the brace plate. Have we bent it? No, it looks pretty straight. Yep. Possibly a slight kink in it, but that's pretty good. Now, this gearbox half should then come off. So just this one long screw that comes out in the middle there. And then here is our gearbox cover off. I don't know if you can see in that camera there. Can you see those little glints of metal? Yeah, I think we've done this gear good and proper. Let's see if we can pull it out easy and have an inspection of it. Well, in actual fact, it doesn't look too bad, does it? But I can see we have, yeah, you can see we have flattened off those gears. So if you compare new to old, you can see, yeah, they have worn, haven't they? It's obviously just planed the top of those teeth off, handful of those metal filings. So what I'm going to do, we'll rebuild this diff in a minute. And what I want to do is actually, I'm going to take this whole housing off so I can get the pinion gear off, and I want to give this a really good clean. So this isn't perhaps the most practical way, but I'm going to take the arm assemblies off. So I'm actually going to take the top link mounts off first. The top link mounts off, the arms will come away quite nicely. I've also slackened off the bolts for the shock, so this should, although from memory I remember these are quite a tight fit into here, come out. Obviously we lost the drive shaft as well, so we'll put that to one side, and same with the other side. What I've also done, you'll see I have just put the nut in there so I remember what hole that goes in. It does affect the handling slightly. So we turn the car over, and what I'm going to do now, I'm going to try and take off these bottom screws there, just to get the whole rear assembly off the car, and then we can just get to the gearbox parts. There's just one more screw I think there, which is the sort of the centre type brace, and here we have. Is it going to come away? I've already undone these. I've already undone that. There we go. And there is our rear assembly, and I'm just going to get to the gearbox so I can clean all the crap out of there. So if I don't do that, then you're just going to have iron filings in there, or steel filings, and it's just going to be like a grinding paste. Oh guys, I forgot to press the record button. So to get this bit off, you've got screws there. You've got one in the middle there, and then these 2 there. They actually screw onto the brace parts, which go in the middle here as well. It is pretty straightforward. Just undo screws and it falls to bits quite nicely. We'll show you how we get it back together. The last bit is I'm just undoing these long screws here so I can get to this plastic part on its own. Because what I want to do, obviously I want to remove the pinion gear, and I want to give this a really good clean up. I'm probably going to put in some degreaser. Might even, one of the best things to put in is actually a dishwasher once it's all degreased up to get it really clean, but we'll see if we can get away with that. So what we need to do is undo that little screw there. I think it's a 2mm, yeah. Oh, that's worryingly loose. Obviously, Traxxas don't put much thread lock on that. Not a lot at all on that, so we'll make sure we thread lock that when we get that back together. So that comes off there. We will actually just have a look at that joint there, but that's for another video when we show you how to service drive shafts. Oh, and there is our pinion gear jumped out. Doesn't actually look too worn, does it? So yeah, it would appear that the crown gear is the one that's worn. The big gear, this big gear here, that's the one that's worn. Sorry, I won't focus with that. This one's not worn at all, but there's no point replacing one without the other, so we will put a new set of them in. You can get hardened ones of these. Haven't got any of them at hand at the moment, so it will just be a standard one. So next thing, we're going to give it a good clean. We'll clean up these plastic parts, and then we will strip down the diff. Right guys, so here we have our diff, which we're going to strip down. First thing you need to do, those 4 screws. Okay, so with those 4 screws undone, just take them out. Put them to one side, and we can now lift off our diff gear. And you'll see one of my questions was, how much oil have Traxxas put in there? Bugger all. I would like to see it level with the top of these cross pins. Now I know it's been used, so you would perhaps see it a little bit lower, but there's definitely not enough oil in there. So what I'm actually going to do, we'll take out these gears, thoroughly clean and degrease them, because we're going to rebuild that diff. Now what the main thing we want to do, so we don't need those bits anymore, is we need to obviously replace this gear. Now what you need to do is actually, this will lever off. Be careful you don't mark it, but it should just lever off. There we go. And then can you see there's a cross pin on there? Just there. And that should come out. Go along those pliers. There we go. That comes out of there like that. Chuck that on there. And there is your diff gear that we're going to chuck away and put a new one on there. Bearings, just check your bearings are okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to degrease all this because I want to actually do it as a clean build, and then we'll come back shortly. So guys, we've given it a thorough degrease. You'll see here the plastic parts. We've given it a good go and degreaser, and make sure after you've degreased to get rid of the degreaser. I just use some brake clean and that gets rid of that. So we don't need these plastic parts. We'll come on to those bits in a minute. Got all our diff parts laid out here. Don't degrease these O-rings or the gasket. Don't want to get them, it will actually make them degrade. Now we were going to just replace like for like, but we now have got one of these, the aftermarket ones, the 9579R. These are meant to be the hardened ones. I don't know if you can see on here, they've actually got a slight spiral pattern to these gears, whereas the others are completely straight cut, so these should be quite a bit stronger. But anyway, let's get this diff built up, show you what to do. It's exactly the same process if you're doing standard or the upgraded gears. The assembly is exactly the same. And we're going to stick with 50,000 oil to go in the diff. That is the standard oil. The heavier the oil, less chance you'll have the inside wheel spinning up, but it will affect the handling characteristics of the truck a little bit. So let's crack on and get this diff together. So the first job is to put these O-rings into the recess in here. Now I'm just going to, so it doesn't go in there completely dry, I'm just going to put a small amount of this oil on there. That just sits in there like that. Do exactly the same with this one. Goes right in the bottom there. Then we can pass through our out drives through here. Put the bearing on first. Always check your bearings. Whenever you've got bearings off, check them. If they're rough, replace them. For the sake of how much they are, I'd always replace them. Again, just because I've got this oil here, I'm just going to put a small amount of oil on here so I don't tear that little O-ring when I push it through. See, it just goes through there like that. Just turn it gently through there like that. See, the O-rings just start to come away a little bit. Push that back in like so, and that is that done. So then we have this little pin which has to go through there like so, and then your gear goes on there like that. Now what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to put a small amount of oil on the back of this so it doesn't, there's no chance, well, you sometimes won't get any oil around the back of there, particularly when you're using quite thick stuff. So I'll put a little bit on there like that, and that is that half done. We've now got to do exactly the same with this, pass through our drive cup, but you've actually got to get all the way down into there with the pin. which is a little more tricky. So I've done exactly the same with this. I've just put the blue gasket on, but it's a little bit fiddly to get it in there. Find if you use long nose pliers to grab your pin and then slide it into there. You can get it in, just a little bit fiddly. You just need to just take your time and get it right. Make sure they feel all nice and smooth. They're good to go. Now we need to make up the smaller gears. You've got 2 pairs of these. And again, these are the originals. They're all good. So you put them on there like that, and you have this little spacer. It's almost like a bearing type thing which goes on there like that. And then we can drop our first set in. Oh, the blue things. Let's take that off so that doesn't get in the way. You then need those flats. I don't know if you can see those flats. They need to line up when you've got your other set of gears, and they need to line up like so. So they're in the same orientation. If you don't do that correct, then it will never work. So there we go. The gears are all in. Sorry, I had to do it off camera. I was just going to see a fistful of thumbs and fingers and everything. I couldn't do that and show you what to do. So you can see we've got those pins all lined up. Now, the age of how much oil do you put in here? Rule of thumb, just cover those cross pins. Just be aware though, this oil is so thick, so you're going to have to let it settle for a little while. So I'm just going to put a load in like that. And then probably leave it to settle for a good 10 to 15 minutes. And so we just got a nice even coverage. I'm going to, because this oil is so thick, keep turning it and turning it, and then let it settle, put a little bit more in. It's worth taking the time to do this right, because if you get this set correctly, it will make the truck go much better. So let that settle for a little bit of time. As you can see, it's got a nice flat surface top, and it's just covering those kingpins. Happy with that, don't want to put any more in. If you fill it too full, it'll actually just won't work, because you've got to have room for the bigger gear to go in there. So we put the blue gasket on. We can then pop on our top gear or ring gear, and then I'm just going to work that. Does it feel okay? Yeah, it feels okay. It doesn't feel actually as stiff as I'd like it, but it is quite a hot day here, so if it is hotter, the diff will feel slightly looser. So we've got these bolts to go in here now. You need to do them up in a, as if you're doing a wheel on a car. Do them in the opposites to get that onto there nice and square. So that's all done up, nice and tight. Doesn't need to be over cranked. Don't use a impact drive or anything on these, because you will strip these threads because they're only going into plastic. But that's all done. Make sure you have put your bearings on there. I didn't forget this time, but I have forgotten in the past, and then got to strip the whole diff down again, which is annoying. So there we go. Pinion gear there. We'll just assemble that, and then we'll get everything back on the car. Right guys, so here we have our gearbox casing. We already put the bearings in there, again give them a check. And here is our centre rear drive shaft. Just getting that a little bit of a clean. That all seems okay. We'll put a small amount of grease on there. You then need to line up the plastic covering on there like so. And then that just simply goes on there like that. That way around there. Now, you then put this through here. And good old Traxxas hadn't put a lot of thread lock on that, so I'm going to put a reasonable amount of thread lock on that, make sure that's nice and tight on there. So we've got that on there, and feel there's a little bit of movement there. And what you do need to be aware of, if this doesn't screw in, it actually needs to be turned around 180 degrees, because there's only thread on one side of that. What I'm just going to do now is I'm just going to put this diff in here. You can only put it in one way. You can see there's a cut out on the bottom there, and I just want to feel what the backlash is like on that. Have we got much movement on there? Now that feels okay, so I'm not going to worry about shimming it out at all. We're just going to leave that as is. So we're going to get all this back on the truck. We will show you a few steps in there, because I did miss some of them when you took it off, but it is pretty straightforward. So we've just done a bit of sub-assembly here. We've put on our front arm mount, the lower rear gearbox casing, and then we've put on the 3 braces here. And you've got 25mm bolts to go through the top there. Make sure this is located in here, because you can pull it out, and you'll then struggle to obviously get it in. It will be too long. So you can then just wiggle it into here, hopefully, like so. We can put in this bolt in here, and then underneath we can then screw up these 2 in here. I'm not going to do them up all the way. Get on the right way around. You've got that little recess which goes into the chassis there. So put one bolt in there, another one in there, and we can then do up that one, that one, that one, and that one. Now I always go around and just check with a hand driver how tight they are, because I don't want to strip any of the threads by overdoing it with the power driver. So So I'm now going to put on the rear shock tower. It's pretty straightforward how that goes on. If you can see, you've got a hole there, there's about 4 or 5, well, it's about 5 or 6 go through there, and then you've got those 2 there. So we'll just get them all screwed up. So we've got all these bolts in here. These ones are 15mm. The longer ones actually are going here for the diff. And then you've got one like a dome head one which goes on there. We're now going to put our diff on, or diff in I should say. You can't see now, can you? So I've already greased up the diff. How much grease to use? Well, that's the question, isn't it? You need to put a decent amount on there, but you don't want to over grease it. It depends how often you maintain them. And I'll put a copious amount on there. Most of it will spin off, but we'll see how it goes. So the diff then slides in like so. You can only put it in one way around. Then the diff cover goes on like so. And because I've got the wing mount on, you can't see it here as well. And then you've got 6 screws. One goes in there, there, down there, and there. Do them up. And that is our diff back in. So what I've found, when you do up this bolt here, there's actually space to get a nut on there. Now this plastic will start to wear. So what I've done is got a slightly longer bolt, and I'm going to put that through there. And I'm just going to put a nut on the other side. So we've got plenty of thread just there. Put a nut on. Spin that nut on there. I've managed to find nylocks with flanges on, so no worry about washers on. And we'll just tighten it up. Now it just gives it a little bit more strength through there. Good little tip, so if you can do that, it's worth a go. So next thing is arms on, pretty straightforward. Obviously they are handed. All you need to do is just get the pivot pin located into there, like so. Then put your drive shaft in. Now, if you've got an earlier car, they didn't come with these little, see my finger there, little washers. They should be in there. The early cars didn't come with them, but you need to make sure you've got them in there, or your drive shafts will pop out. So we'll put that, make sure that's gone in there. We will then put our drive shaft in, and then just put our turnbuckle back on the top there. You can see I left that bolt in there so I know which hole to put it in, and then we'll just mount our shocks back in as well. So I've got the other side on. I've just started to put this brace on here, which just goes over. There's 2 little lugs there that goes on, and pretty much the last step is we put on our front brace, or sorry, the rear bumper I suppose as you could call it. Got 2 screws there to go under. Then you'll see underneath here we've got 2 shorter screws, and then you have a longer one that goes through the middle. Just do that, wheels and wings on, and then we're ready to go. It's back together, tyres on, wing on. Could have given it a bit of a clean, couldn't I? No. So all the goodies are in there. Can't really see much, can we? But let's take it out for a rip and see how it goes. Gears all working well. Got a new location this time. Oh, no grip here. We're in the middle of a drought in the UK here. The grass is non-existent. We're going to have a couple of races now. Right, you ready?
Yes.
3, 2, 1, go! Oh, I'm standing right at the wrong place to judge those jumps. Oh, we've done a bit of a donut. Those gears are sounding good. So definitely worthwhile upgrade, guys. I hope that was good. I can't judge that at all up there.
Nor can I.
Oh,
What are you doing in the middle there?
I might have went the wrong side.
Oh.
It's real low grip here, very low grip.
Woo! Yes. Right there.
Oh, we've both been a bit. Oh, might have been a little tag there.
Oh.